Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really powerful, the let them theory.
Yeah, it's from Mel Robbins' book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think of it as your shortcut to, well, a better way of handling stress, relationships, personal growth.
Especially when you pair it with that crucial let me piece.
Right. The book's full of her own experiences, which, makes it super relatable.
And what's really interesting is how quickly these ideas can kind of click. So many of us, maybe even you listening right now, are just constantly juggling pressures, looking for faster, maybe smarter ways to navigate life. We're all chasing those aha moments, aren't we? That bring some clarity.
Totally. And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're going to distill the core of let them and that vital let me that goes right alongside it.
The idea is to show how, actively using these concepts can lead to a more centered life.
Yeah, more fulfilling, maybe. Free from that burden of trying to control everything, everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so where does this let them idea really start? What's the genesis?
It really starts with a fundamental shift, I think, where you direct your energy.
Away from managing the outside world.
Exactly. And towards managing yourself. The book kicks off with a great story about prom night.
Ah, the prom night story. I remember that one. The corsage chaos, the dinner drama.
And then the rain.
And then the rain, right. So what's the key takeaway from that whole roller coaster?
Well, the real insight is just how much energy was poured into things that were completely uncontrollable.
Like someone else's flower preference.
Yeah, or the group's dinner choice, even the weather. The powerful takeaway is this. Your energy, your power, it surges when you focus on what you can influence.
Which is always.
Yourself.
Always yourself.
Right. And that really hits on this core idea. You just cannot control what other people say or think or do.
Seems obvious, maybe, but think about how much mental energy we burn trying to do just that every single day.
So much. And the book argues that this urge to control, it often comes from fear, right? Yeah, a deep-seated fear. Fear of being left out, maybe not being liked, fear that things will just fall apart if we're not, in charge.
And what's the actual cost of trying to constantly pull all those strings?
Well, hello, anxiety and stress.
Right.
When you're perpetually trying to anticipate and manage everyone else's moves, you're basically putting your nervous system on constant high alert. It's exhausting.
Okay, so let them is about letting go of that need to micromanage others.
Yeah.
But you said earlier, it's just one side of the coin. What's the crucial let me part?
Precisely. Let them, while it feels liberating, really needs its counterpart. Let me.
Okay.
And this is all about taking complete ownership. Your own reactions, your choices, your overall well-being. It's the active part.
The book uses that example about the weekend trip, the one you weren't invited to. That really clarifies it.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. The let them part is acknowledging, okay, friends can make plans without me, and that's their choice. Let them.
But the let me part is?
The let me part is where you address your own feelings about it. Maybe you feel excluded. Okay, acknowledge that. Then you decide to actively nurture your friendships.
So not just sitting back feeling sorry for yourself.
Right. It's about proactive engagement with your own needs. Maybe you reach out to other friends or plan something yourself.
So just by saying let them, you can actually shift the power balance in relationships.
Absolutely, because when you stop trying to force things or control outcomes related to others, you free yourself from so much negativity.
And that feeling of being dependent on what others decide.
Exactly, you take your power back.
So what does let me look like in practice then, day to day?
It's about owning what you want. It's about proactively going after it. And crucially, it's about setting firm boundaries.
Recognizing your own agency.
Yes. In any situation, you always have choices about your response.
This sounds incredibly useful for dealing with just everyday stress. The book talks about being stuck in a long line, that person coughing nonstop on the plane, how to let them and let me work there.
Well, in both those classic kind of annoying scenarios, the first reaction is usually frustration, right? A wish for things to be different.
Yeah, move faster, stop coughing.
Exactly. But these are things we can't directly influence. It just amps up our own stress. So let them is about accepting the reality. The line is long, the person is coughing. Let them.
Okay, accept it. But then let me is about taking control of.
Your response, your internal state, and any actions you can take. The book mentions Dr. Ittie's insights on how easily our brains flip into that survival mode when stressed.
Which clouds judgment.
Totally. So let me is about consciously choosing how you react. With the coughing passenger, you can't stop the cough, but you can choose to focus on your own comfort.
Like, let me put on headphones, or let me see if I can move.
Exactly. Or let me focus on my breathing, actions you control.
Actually, the book mentions a specific let me technique for hitting the reset button on stress, doesn't it? The breathing thing.
Yes. The scientifically backed power of deep breathing. Slow, deep belly breaths. It actually stimulates the vagus nerve.
Which does what?
Think of it like hitting the brakes on your nervous system. It sends a signal to your brain. It's safe, you can relax. That's a direct action. You can take a let me moment to regain composure.
That's really practical.
Okay.
Let's shift gears a bit. How does this apply to something huge for many people? Careers and ambition, feeling stuck, wanting that promotion.
Yeah, the book's pretty clear here. You can't make your boss give you a promotion.
That's the let them.
That's the let them. They have their reasons, their timelines, their own pressures. Getting totally fixated on trying to manipulate their decision usually just leads to frustration.
And resentment, probably.
Definitely.
So the control shifts back again to what we can do, that let me.
Exactly. Let me in your career means taking ownership of your path. Instead of just focusing on changing your current boss's mind.
You look outwards.
Yeah, let me explore other opportunities. Let me network. Let me update my skills. Take tangible steps forward, despite whatever obstacles are in your current role.
The empowering message being, you're not truly trapped.
Never truly trapped. You always have the agency, the power to seek out a situation that serves you better. Let me leave is also a powerful option.
Okay. The book also uses a more everyday example. The dog owner in the park. How does that illustrate let them with just, other people's behavior?
That story highlights that not every single thing we see someone else do requires our intervention or even our strong opinion.
Even if we don't agree with it.
Right. Our first instinct might be to judge or correct or get annoyed, but let them encourages us to pause and ask, is this really worth my energy? Sometimes the answer is just let them be.
Our responses will vary, naturally.
Of course, depending on the situation, your values, the potential harm, but it's about choosing a way to invest your energy.
And what about those really big, complex issues like world politics, things where our individual control feels almost zero?
The principle holds. Obsessing over huge, large-scale issues you can't directly influence, or getting caught up trying to change deeply ingrained political beliefs in others. It's incredibly draining.
So let them here is about
accepting the limits of your individual influence. Freeing yourself from that constant state of worry or agitation about things far beyond your control. And this applies to smaller things, too, like constantly worrying what others might think of your choices. Let them think what they think.
That fear of judgment is massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially now with social media. The author talks about her own struggle with posting online.
Yeah, that fear of what will people think.
How to let them help break through that.
It's the core realization. People will form their own opinions no matter what you do or don't do.
You can't please everyone.
You really can't. Trying to craft some perfect online image that avoids all criticism is it's a losing game and a huge waste of time. The let them theory encourages the courage to just be authentic, to put your stuff out there if that's your goal. Recognizing that your time, your actual goals, are way more valuable than managing perceptions. Let them judge.
It's a really good reminder about balancing our own needs with others' expectations. There's that example of the packed weekend friend's birthday, visiting grandparents. How do you navigate that using this framework?
The key shift is prioritizing what truly resonates with you and your values, rather than just trying to avoid disappointing people.
Because someone will probably be disappointed anyway.
Almost inevitably, yeah. In that example, the author makes an effort for both, not out of guilt or obligation, but because it aligned with her sense of who she wanted to be, someone who values her friendships and her family connections. Guilt shouldn't be the driver. Let me act according to my values.
That makes sense. Okay, let's talk family dynamics. Those can be intricate. How to let them and let me function there.
Oof, yeah. Family members often have really deeply entrenched beliefs and expectations. There's years of history, a complex system.
It's not always straightforward.
Not at all. The book specifically mentions blended families, step-family dynamics. Let them becomes crucial there, like letting stepchildren process their feelings, their grief, their loyalty binds, even if those feelings are negative towards the step-parent initially. You have to let them feel what they feel.
And the book brings in Lisa Bouyou's concept here, the frame of reference. How does understanding someone's frame help?
The frame of reference idea is about trying to understand the why behind someone's perspective, especially when it feels critical or hurtful.
Seeing where they're coming from.
Exactly. The example with the author's mother is great. What looked like disapproval of her marriage.
But actually fear.
Yeah. Rooted in her mother's fear about her daughter living so far away. Understanding that underlying concern, that frame of reference, doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, but it can foster empathy. It can reduce the conflict, create more balance. You understand why they think that way, even if you don't agree. Let them have their frame. Let me understand it. Let me respond based on that understanding.
What about dealing with emotional immaturity? That comes up a lot, like the silent treatment. How does let them help there?
Let them can be incredibly empowering in those moments. It helps you recognize that someone else's inability to communicate directly, resorting to things like the silent treatment, is about their emotional toolkit, or lack thereof.
It's not about you.
It's not your fault, and it's not your problem to fix. Let them be emotionally immature, in a sense. Your job is to protect yourself from getting pulled into their emotional spiral. Let me not engage with this behavior. Let me protect my peace.
And importantly, what if we look inward and realize sometimes we're the ones being emotionally immature?
Well, the book definitely encourages that self-awareness. It's key. We can't always control that first flash of anger or frustration, but here's about learning to pause. Allow the feeling to rise, notice it, and then let it subside without reacting the way we'll regret later.
Recognizing our own triggers.
Yeah, and patterns.
Yeah.
It's a crucial step toward healthier emotional responses ourselves. Let me feel this, but let me choose my response carefully.
Making really tough decisions often means someone else might get hurt. The book uses the dramatic example of a groom calling off a wedding. How does the theory provide strength then?
In those really high-stakes situations, let them theory offers the fortitude to do what is genuinely right for you, even knowing it will cause pain.
That sounds hard.
It is hard, but the core principle is, while you can have empathy for their pain, you are not responsible for managing their emotional reaction.
Your responsibility is to your own truth.
Exactly. Let them have their reaction, their anger, their sadness. Let me make the choice that aligns with my integrity, even though it's difficult.
Okay, let's talk comparison. That's almost universal, right? The book talks about let them have their cards. What's that about?
Ah, yes. It's such a powerful metaphor. Life isn't fair. Someone will always seem to have a better situation, more luck, more talent, an easier path, a better hand of cards.
And comparing is toxic.
Totally. Comparing your messy reality, your behind-the-scenes struggle, with someone else's curated highlight reel, it's a total confidence killer. So the first step is let them. Let them have their advantages, their successes, their apparently great hand.
And the let me part counters the comparison trap.
Exactly. Let me shifts the focus right back to your hand. What resources, talents, opportunities do you have? It's about learning to play your own hand skillfully.
Working with what you've got.
Yes. And maybe even using other people's success not as a weapon against yourself, but as inspiration or information. The story about Molly and her annoying, seemingly perfect neighbor shows how sometimes that pang of jealousy can actually highlight what you secretly want. It points you toward what let me do next in your own life. Let me figure out what that jealousy is telling me I need to pursue.
That's a constructive way to look at envy. Okay, adult friendships. They can be tricky to navigate. The book mentions the great scattering, and let me go first.
Yeah, adult friendships face unique challenges. The great scattering is just that natural drifting apart that happens as lives change careers, moves, kids, different priorities.
Is that always personal?
Often it's not. Let them here means accepting that some friendships might fade or change frequency due to these life shifts.
Yeah.
Let them follow their path, even if it diverges from yours for a while.
And let me go first. What's that?
That's the proactive piece again. Recognizing that adult friendships often require conscious effort. Let me go first means taking the initiative.
Reaching out,
Yeah.
suggesting plans.
Yes. Being the one to introduce yourself, being open to new connections. The author talks about rebuilding her social circle after moving it, highlights that creating your support system is an active process. Let me be the one to initiate. Let me build my community.
It requires flexibility.
A lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
And not taking the natural ebbs and flows too personally. Let them be busy. Let me reach out anyway. Let me be open to new people.
What about when we want someone else to change? Someone we care about. We see they could be happier, healthier.
The desire to fix someone. It comes from a good place, usually.
But the book says pressuring them backfires.
Almost always. People resist feeling controlled or pushed. Trying to force change often just triggers defensiveness, maybe even rebellion. It becomes a power struggle.
So again, let them.
Let them be. Respect their autonomy, even if you disagree with their choices. The focus has to shift from control to influence.
And how do you influence without pressuring? The book mentions modeling behavior.
Yes, modeling is huge, simply living the way you hope they might choose to live. And then there's the ABC loop, which is a more structured, science-backed approach.
Okay, break down ABC.
A is for apologize if you've been pushy and ask open-ended questions, genuinely try to understand their perspective. B, back off and observe their behavior without judgment. Give them space. C, celebrate any tiny steps they take in the right direction and continue to model the change yourself.
It sounds patient.
It requires patience. It's about fostering their internal motivation, not forcing compliance. The book also suggests using the 5 whys technique on yourself first.
To understand why I want them to change.
Exactly. What's your motivation? Is it truly for them, or is it about your own comfort or needs? That self-reflection is important. Let me understand my own motives first.
There's also a really tough section on helping someone who's seriously struggling addiction, severe mental health issues, distinguishing between rescuing and supporting.
That's a very fine but critical line. The book puts forward this counterintuitive idea. Sometimes the more you rescue, the more they sink.
How so?
Because constantly shielding someone from the natural consequences of their choices, paying their debts, making excuses for them, smoothing everything over, can actually prevent them from hitting their own rock bottom, the place where they might finally find the motivation to change. It removes the impetus.
So let them struggle. That sounds harsh.
It feels harsh, but it's about allowing them to face reality. It's not about abandoning them, but about letting the consequences land. The example of the daughter with anxiety sleeping in the parents' room.
Avoiding the fear just made it worse.
Exactly. Avoidance perpetuates the problem. Allowing struggle within safe boundaries allows for learning and growth.
And what's the let me part of supporting them, not rescuing?
Let me involves setting really clear boundaries about what help you will and won't provide and sticking to them. Sometimes that means stepping back, even cutting off certain kinds of support if terms are violated.
So true support isn't solving their problems.
No. True support is more about let me listen without judgment, let me validate their feelings, let me help create a safe space for them to heal and find solutions. It's empowering them, not doing it for them.
Okay, let's talk love and relationships. Modern dating, it's a landscape. How does let them help there?
In dating, let them is huge for observing behavior. Actions really do speak louder than words.
So watch what they do, not just what they say.
Absolutely. Let their actions show you their level of interest, their consistency, their intentions. Don't waste time decoding mixed signals when their behavior is clearly telling you something. Let their actions be the message.
And the let me in dating.
Let me be choosy. Let me prioritize my own life, my dreams, my well-being. Let me not chase someone who isn't reciprocating. It's about knowing your worth and acting accordingly. Being honest with yourself about the dynamic. Let me walk away if this isn't right for me.
The book also talks about commitment versus compatibility, especially with big life disagreements.
Yeah, that's crucial. Commitment is the willingness to work through stuff together. Compatibility is about whether your fundamental values and life goals actually align in the first place.
So if you want kids, and they absolutely don't.
That's a compatibility issue. Let them have their non-negotiable desire or lack thereof. Then comes the tough let me part. Let me decide if I can genuinely compromise on this without building resentment. Or let me accept that this difference means we aren't ultimately compatible despite our commitment.
That leads to heartbreak sometimes.
It does, and the book acknowledges that. It talks about grieving, the importance of self-compassion, really embracing let me grieve. It even gives some practical research-backed advice for moving forward after a breakup, like the no-contact rule, let me heal.
It seems like all these different applications, stress, career, family, love, they all circle back to one core relationship.
They absolutely do. The most important one, the relationship you have with yourself.
So how does let them connect to this final idea of let me be me?
It's kind of the ultimate payoff. When you truly internalize, let them, let others be who they are, think what they think, do what they do, without you needing to control or fix it, you finally give yourself permission.
Permission for what?
Permission to let me be me. Truly, authentically yourself, with self-respect, with self-compassion, pursuing your dreams without needing everyone else's stamp of approval.
Because you stop trying to manage their reactions.
Exactly. The powerful final reminder is that you are the love of your life. that relationship needs nurturing first.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the single most important takeaway about, you know, taking back your power?
I think the analogy of the sky is perfect. It's always changing, sunny, stormy, cloudy. We can't control the sky, the external world. It just is.
Our power isn't controlling the weather.
No. Our true power lies in how we respond to whatever weather life throws at us. We are in charge of our thoughts, our words, our actions. That's it.
Focus on what you can control.
Yes. Reclaim that ownership. Focus your energy there. That's where your power is.
And embracing let them and let me, while maybe not instantly easy.
No, it takes practice, for sure.
It's presented as a clear path towards a more fulfilling, definitely more empowered life.
Absolutely. It's a journey towards, really, self-liberation, getting unstuck.
So, a final thought for you listening. Maybe take a moment today and identify just one area in your life. Could be small, could be big, where you feel like you're pushing against something, trying to control someone or an outcome. And just consider what might shift if you applied let them to that situation. And then, crucially, what would the corresponding let me action be for you? How could that put you back in the driver's seat of your own experience?
It's a powerful question to sit with.
Definitely. And if this discussion sparked your interest, we really encourage you to check out the source, Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory, for much more depth and loads of practical examples. Thanks for diving up with us today.